Modern science operates within a fragmentation problem. Physical, biological, cognitive, and social systems are often treated as disconnected realities, each governed by isolated rules that fail to integrate into a single, cohesive picture of the natural world. The General Theory of Organized Systems, or GTOS, seeks to resolve this. Its objective is to establish a single scientific framework capable of spanning all these disparate domains. The structural logic for this modern theory is drawn from an unexpected source, the 17th century Islamic philosopher Mulla Sadra. Sadra's work centers on a specific philosophical axiom, a salat al-wujud, or the primacy of existence. This principle identifies existence itself as the fundamental reality, the primary source from which all other properties and characteristics derive. GTOS does not attempt to unify science through new mathematical equations. It adopts Sadra's ontological architecture as a structural blueprint for how systems are organized. By starting with this ontological bedrock, GTOS provides a scalable framework, spanning from subatomic particles all the way to social structures, without losing its internal logic. In Mulla Sadra's philosophy, existence is never static. It is defined as graded, dynamic, and continuously becoming. GTOS uses those same three properties to define an organizational state. It describes systems as graded, dynamic, and continuously reorganizing. This comparative matrix reveals a structural isomorphism, a shared logic between 17th century ontology and modern systems theory. The philosophical concept of tashkik al-wujud, or the gradation of existence, maps directly to the GTOS principle of gradation of organizational integration. This indicates that systems exist on a spectrum of complexity, rather than in a simple binary state of existing or not existing. Sadra's substantial motion corresponds to continuous organizational evolution. In this view, biological and social systems are constantly evolving their internal organization as a requirement for their continued persistence. The unity of the knower and the known translates to recursive organizational integration, and identity through existence maps to identity through organizational continuity. Rather than a direct vocabulary translation, these parallels reveal a universal structural pattern shared by both frameworks. Mapping these axioms suggests that GTOS is the scientific formalization of a deeply established ontological truth. Modern physics often assumes that mathematical equations and fundamental laws act as an invisible engine that creates the organization we see in the universe. This top-down model implies that the law exists first, and the organization of matter follows its instructions. GTOS adapts Mulla Sadra's logic to challenge this, shifting the focus from existence is primary to organized existence is primary. In this model, organization does not derive from external laws. Instead, organized existence naturally produces stable, observable patterns over time, which we identify as regularities. Scientific laws serve as the formal descriptions of these stable patterns. This makes mathematics strictly descriptive. Equations summarize what the system is doing. They do not dictate what it must do. This perspective aligns with a branch of modern philosophy that views laws as descriptions of stable patterns rather than independent entities acting upon nature. By stripping math of this generative role, the theory shifts the focus back to the physical systems themselves to understand how the universe organizes. To follow Mulla Sadra's logic, a system's properties must unfold entirely from its first principle. This means no external information or design can be imposed on the system from the outside. We can trace this unfolding through the sequential architecture of GTOS, beginning with organized existence. First, organized existence yields a specific organizational state. That state determines the system's organizational properties, the physical and structural characteristics it possesses. These properties define the system's organizational potentials, the range of possible future configurations available to it. The drive to inhabit those potentials results in organizational evolution. At high levels of evolutionary integration, the theory proposes that consciousness emerges as a structural requirement for further organization. This leads to knowing, where the system processes information about its own state, feeding back into its continued existence. This chain suggests complex phenomena like consciousness do not require external intervention. Instead, they are recursive results of the system's own organizational evolution. Does this focus on organization attempt to replace Mulla Sadra's original emphasis on pure existence? GTOS is intended as an extension of that philosophy, a way to translate broad ontological insights into a framework for applied science. This relationship is best understood through three nested domains. The outermost is existence, the most universal category. The middle domain is organization, a structural property possessed to varying degrees. The core is organized existence, the specific domain where GTOS operates. Within this core, GTOS specifically investigates systems whose persistence depends on recursive organization. This allows researchers to ask, given that something exists, under what organizational principles does it persist, evolve, and eventually become conscious? By grounding itself in these ontological axioms, GTOS provides a framework for generating testable hypotheses about persistence and evolution across physical, biological, and cognitive systems.